Despite adhering to a restricted diet during her hospital stay, Emma smuggled a substantial stash of snacks into her room and consumed them voraciously. "If you continue like this, it could worsen your health," I admonished her. Emma shot back. "If you had bothered to prepare nutritious meals for me, maybe I wouldn't be sick. Stop blaming me." She glared at me angrily. Daddy's darling is suddenly the saint. "Get a divorce and disappear, okay?" she added venomously. Later, when I returned to the car, I noticed Tom had called. I recounted my exchange with Emma, only to face his angry outburst. "Emma is unwell. You need to be more supportive," Tom yelled over the phone. Frustrated, I hung up without a word. Feeling overwhelmed, I checked into a hotel to create some space between us. But after receiving a particular photo from Anna, I reconsidered. "Emma, I'll grant your wish for a divorce," I resolved quietly to myself. "But first, I'm going to expose your beloved daddy's true nature. Stay tuned." I'm Megan, a 45-year-old housewife. I married my colleague Tom 5 years ago. I was so focused on my career that I found myself in my late 30s, thinking marriage was no longer an option. But 7 years ago, Tom joined my department and pursued me persistently. After dating for 2 years, we got married. Tom had divorced his ex-wife because she was unfaithful and had a daughter named Emma, who was in elementary school then. My parents and friends were concerned, but when I met Emma during our engagement, she was so sweet and innocent that I was excited about having a child. After we got married, even though we weren't biologically related, I was determined to raise her with love. However, that determination was soon tested. When we got married, Emma was in 6th grade and loved games, music, and eating. She would lounge on the living room sofa, lost in games and music, always munching on something. I would say, "If you eat too many snacks, you won't be able to eat dinner," like any parent, but it never worked with her. Despite having 3 meals a day, she constantly snacked. Even for a growing child, eating 2 pancakes and 2 bags of potato chips before dinner, and then having a large serving of fried chicken and 2 bowls of rice for dinner, was too much. Since she wasn't involved in any sports, she naturally had a chubby body. "Emma, I'm worried you're eating too much. It's not good for your health. You skip vegetables and only eat fatty or meaty foods," I finally said, unable to stay silent any longer. She frowned in irritation. "Stop it. You're not my real mom, so just leave me alone. Megan, your cooking is just fine, but you need to work on your nagging. Otherwise, Dad might leave you," she added in a sarcastic tone that really got under my skin. I spoke to Tom about it, but he just chuckled. "She's just being a teenager. Give her a break." "But Emma eats excessively. She eats a lot, doesn't she?" I insisted. "I think it's affecting her health. She gets upset when there's no food in the house, so I buy snacks, but she finishes them quickly. She doesn't like healthier options like dried fruits or vegetables. I had a huge appetite when I was a kid, too. It settled down when I was around 30, so don't worry about it," Tom chuckled, glancing at his slim figure. But he had played basketball until college, so his level of exercise was entirely different. I knew it was wrong to compare, but Tom, who doted on Emma, wouldn't listen. Eventually, Emma entered middle school and started hanging out with the wrong crowd. She began engaging in problematic behaviors like going to band concerts and staying out late, even before tests. She and her friends got piercings, and her fashion became more outrageous. "You're still in middle school. Piercing your nose and lips at home is crazy," I scolded Emma harshly. "If you're under 18, you need parental consent even at a hospital. There's a risk of infection." "Megan, you're such a worrywart," Tom said in a relaxed tone, standing next to a sulking Emma. "It's no big deal." Yeah, you might be too scared to pierce yourself, but my friends and I are fine with it," she said, puffing out her chest. I felt like pulling my hair out. that's not the point. Of course, you don't get modern fashion because you're an old lady, but Daddy understands, right? Emma looked to Tom for agreement, and he gave her a forced smile. Of course, Emma. You always look great, no matter what, Tom said with a loving expression that made me want to throw up my hands in frustration. Even in high school, Emma neglected her studies, spending most of her time on games and music. As expected, she panicked just before the entrance exams. She barely managed to get into the lowest-ranked school in the state, but soon after starting, she began feeling ill frequently. She complained of fatigue, exhaustion, stomach aches, nausea, and low-grade fevers. A visit to the local clinic led to a diagnosis of stress related to school. Initially, I agreed, but as the symptoms persisted, I pushed Emma to see a general hospital. What? I hate needles and tests because I'm so sensitive, she whined. Tom sided with her. Forcing her to go is harsh. Let's wait a little longer. But what if it's something serious? Tom, we are at work during the day. What if she collapses? I asked, concerned. Emma responded casually. Then you should quit your job. Yeah, if you take care of Emma, I can work without any worry. You can even take her to the hospital if needed, Tom added. I was momentarily speechless. But Emma is your daughter, Tom. Don't be so indifferent. She's your daughter too, blood or not, Tom stated. Emma interjected. And besides, Dad probably makes more money than you, so no one will notice if you're not at work. Feeling disheartened because I found my work fulfilling, but unable to refuse my daughter, I reluctantly resigned. Emma wasted no time in treating me like a servant as soon as she got home from school. Oh no, I forgot to buy pudding. Go buy me some from the cake shop by the station, she commanded. Massage my legs, they're so tired. Oh, and my shoulders and back too. What's this? Stew? I want sweet and sour pork. Throw this out and make that instead, she demanded, her mood worsening when she felt unwell. She claimed she couldn't sleep and would call me in the middle of the night to discuss trivial matters. That girl in class is such a teacher's pet. It's irritating. Hey, are you even listening? Don't fall asleep in front of me, she scolded. She even asked for impossible things, like curing her headaches. Tom, can't you do something about Emma? Exhausted from lack of sleep and emotional strain, I pleaded with him. I understand she wants someone to talk to her when she's sick, but this is getting too much. I can't handle it anymore, I admitted. Tom furrowed his brow and sighed. But you're Emma's mother now, so you need to manage it. Plus, kids' tantrums are cute, aren't they? He replied. Why don't you take over on weekends? I suggested, so I could at least have some peace even just on the weekends. Tom shrugged helplessly. I work to support us too, can't you see that? You should try to meet our daughter's requests with a smile. Can't you come home a bit earlier? I pleaded urgently. You've been working a lot of overtime lately, with many weekends and overnight trips. Can't you spend more time with Emma? I asked desperately. No way, I'm swamped. Emma is your responsibility, Tom replied, deflecting responsibility for our daughter onto me and showing little interest in getting involved himself. My trust in him waned as Emma's condition persisted for over a year. A co-worker suggested it might be a liver issue. We really should get her checked out properly at the hospital, I insisted repeatedly, but Tom always refused. However, a single comment from a coworker made him change his mind instantly. I was frustrated, but I went along with them. After a thorough examination, Mia was diagnosed with cirrhosis. She has jaundice and ascites. It's grade B right now. It's not immediately life-threatening, but it's quite severe, the doctor explained. Why did we wait so long? I asked, feeling a mix of frustration and concern. We're sorry. Both Tom and Emma, usually carefree, hung their heads in shame. It seems the cirrhosis resulted from hepatitis C. Do you have any idea how this might have happened? For instance, Did you pierce your ears yourself and share the equipment without proper sterilization? The doctor asked Emma. Oh, she gasped. I think so, she muttered, realizing the consequences of her actions. Her face was down as she bit her lip. Will she need surgery? Tom asked anxiously. The doctor replied calmly. First, she needs to be hospitalized for nutritional and exercise guidance. However, if this continues, it could progress to liver cancer. A liver transplant would be the best option once her condition stabilizes. Understood, I replied, feeling the weight of the situation. After seeing Emma off to her hospital room with a nurse, Tom and I went home to prepare for her stay. During the drive, Tom suggested, "Let's register for a living donor liver transplant. Waiting for a donor might worsen Emma's condition." "Yes, you're right," I agreed. "Then I'm counting on you too, Megan," Tom said, glancing at me. "You'll register as well, won't you?" I asked him. "No way. I can't handle pain," Tom replied, surprising me. "They say donors can have complications like bowel obstruction or ulcers. It'd be a problem if that happened to me since I'm the breadwinner." "That's a valid concern, but is it okay for me to be the donor?" I wondered aloud. "Don't worry, it's usually not life-threatening. The liver regenerates even after part of it is removed, so it's manageable." Tom reassured me with a cheerful smile that left me feeling unsettled. Despite my fears, I couldn't sit back and watch Emma's condition worsen. After undergoing compatibility tests and discovering I was a match, I registered as a donor. Now, whenever her condition improved, I was prepared to donate part of my liver. Honestly, I was terrified. But as Emma's mother, despite not being biologically related, I wanted to support her in every way possible. One day, after some time had passed, I received a call from the hospital. Emma's condition had stabilized, and they wanted to schedule the liver transplant surgery. Coordinating with the operating room and the doctors, I realized that since she had animosity towards me, she might refuse the transplant if she knew I was the donor. So, I asked the doctor to keep it a secret. Soon, the surgery date was set, and I went to the hospital for tests. On my way back, I stopped by Emma's room and was shocked. Despite being on a restricted diet, she had bought a lot of snacks from the hospital store and was devouring them. I lost my temper and scolded her sternly. "Do you understand your condition? If you keep this up, it could be life-threatening. You need to take your health seriously, Emma," I urged, feeling frustrated. Pointing her dirty finger, Emma blamed me. "It's your fault anyway. If you had prepared healthy meals and snacks over the past 5 years, I wouldn't be sick. Take responsibility." I felt like collapsing under her unjust accusation. "What are you saying? You were the one who always insisted on high-calorie meals and snacks. Don't blame me," I countered firmly. Emma sneered, her voice filled with bitterness. "You're always bossing me around. It's so annoying." Her hurtful words pierced my heart like sharp arrows. "I don't need this from you anymore. I don't even want to see you," she continued bitterly. "Just a parasite acting all high and mighty. Get a divorce and disappear." Her hateful words left me feeling numb and detached, the anger quickly fading into resignation. "Got it," I said quietly and left Emma's room. When I got back to the car, I noticed Tom had called, so I recounted my exchange with Emma. Instead of understanding, I was met with furious yelling. "Are you stupid? Emma is sick. You should be more supportive." Tom's words hit me like a wave of misery. What if her condition worsens because of stress? Why do I have to put up with this? I muttered to myself, feeling utterly miserable. I hung up without responding and drove away from the parking lot. Back home, I packed my suitcase with essentials and left the house. I needed a break from them, so I decided to stay at a hotel. The next day, I met my friend Anna at a cafe and poured out my feelings about Tom and Emma. Anna frowned, hesitated for a moment, then pulled out her phone. After a while, she showed me a picture that made me gasp involuntarily. "You should look into this carefully. There might be something going on," Anna suggested cautiously. "I will. Thanks," I replied in a strained voice, asking Anna to send the picture to my phone. As I looked at it, a surge of intense anger welled up inside me, making my whole body heat up. "Emma, I'll grant your wish for a divorce. But before that, I'm going to reveal your daddy's true colors. Just wait," I vowed silently. Right after parting ways with Anna, I went to a real estate agency and immediately signed a contract for a weekly rental apartment. I arranged for a moving company to transfer all my belongings there. I also secured a full-time job and started working right away. I had been ignoring calls and messages from Tom, but when I checked my phone 3 days later after returning home, I saw I had 50 missed calls. Reluctantly, I called him back, and he immediately started yelling, "Where are you? Why aren't you coming home? And why did you send divorce papers out of nowhere?" Tom fired rapid questions at me. "That's none of your concern," I responded coldly to his barrage of inquiries, which only seemed to anger him more. "Don't play games. You're Emma's mother, right?" His furious shouting made me instinctively pull the phone away from my ear. "And now you refuse to donate your liver for your daughter's transplant? Get to the hospital and re-register now." "No, I won't donate to her anymore," I said firmly, unmoved by his demands. I heard Tom sigh heavily over the phone. "Being stubborn over a minor disagreement is childish. It's embarrassing at your age," he retorted. "Say what you want, but what about you, huh? Do you even care about Emma?" I shot back. "Emma and I are strangers. I've never thought of her as my own since we got married." I seized the opportunity to speak my mind. "Did you file for divorce?" Tom asked abruptly. "I can't do that. If we divorce, you won't be family anymore and we can't proceed with the donor process." Tom sounded irritated, and I couldn't help but sigh. "Why are you fixated on me? As her biological father, you should be the donor." Tom dismissed my reasonable suggestion with annoyance. "I told you, I can't handle pain, and there are risks of complications." "Yes, it seems that way," I replied tersely. "Then count me out. Besides, Emma's condition isn't immediately life-threatening. If you're unwilling, we'll wait until another donor appears." I realized he cared more about himself than his daughter. Utterly disillusioned by Tom's selfishness, I made a decision. "I'll visit Emma in her room next week. We need to talk." After ending the call, a week later as promised, I went to Emma's hospital room. As soon as she saw me, she started yelling, "You stupid old hag. Don't go off on your own. Go talk to the doctor and re-register as a donor." I felt disgusted even looking at her. Is this really how you ask someone for a favor? I thought, feeling the sting of her words. Both father and daughter lacked basic manners. "You were the one who told me you didn't need me and to get lost, didn't you?" I retorted, frustrated by Emma's attitude. "That was just a figure of speech," Emma stammered, trying to make excuses. "I don't want you two to separate because of me, right, Dad? You don't want to divorce Megan, do you?" She usually called me old hag or old lady, but now she was using my name. Emma looked up at Tom with pleading eyes, and he nodded vigorously. "Of course not. I want us to continue living happily as a family," Tom said with a forced smile. I handed him the photos and the investigation report I had taken out of my bag. "Oh, you sure? But it seems Emma has another happy family," I said pointedly. Emma's face paled as she glanced at the photo. Tom's voice was filled with anger as he confronted her. "Emma, you've been seeing them behind my back?" Emma stammered in response. Tom slammed the photos down on the table in the hospital room. They showed a woman with a plump figure similar to Emma's, a tall man in a suit, and Emma. The scene appeared to be covertly taken from a nearby table at a restaurant. Another photo showed the three of them walking down a main street, holding high-end shopping bags with joyful expressions. Emma snapped at me accusingly. How did you know I was meeting my mom and her new husband? Hiring a detective is so low, I calmly explained. When I was cleaning your room, I noticed you had a lot of high-end brand bags. I wondered how you could afford them without having a job. Mind your own business, old lady, Emma shot back angrily. I can't do that. I am your mother after all, I replied firmly, smiling despite her glare. When you came home from dinner, you sometimes smelled like perfume. I knew you were lying about having dinner with friends. Tom tilted his head in confusion. I never noticed. You're usually home after she showered, and on weekends, you come back after midnight, I continued. It seemed suspicious, so I hired a detective. I'm relieved you weren't hanging out with bad friends, Tom interjected, trying to ease the tension. You don't know anything, Dad, Emma retorted, clearly upset. I'm sorry, I couldn't say no when Mom insisted, Emma quickly added, attempting to appease Tom with a sweet, flattering voice. Tom forced a smile and said, Yeah, I understand. His smile vanished when I played the audio recording. Mom, Dad is such a cheapskate. He works at a big company, but my allowance is only $100 a month. Can you believe that? It's gone as soon as I buy one outfit. I hate living poor. Emma's voice echoed through the room, revealing her true feelings. Emma, honey, for now, just endure it and marry a wealthy businessman just like your stepdad. A woman with a voice similar to Emma's spoke, followed by a man's agreeing voice. Or come live with us, Emma. I'll buy you anything you want. But if I move, I won't be able to see my friends, Emma hesitated. Besides, leaving Dad alone would be sad, right? He doesn't even have any friends. You're so kind for not wanting to leave your dad, the woman cooed, and they all laughed loudly. Tom's face turned red, and Emma shrank on the bed, clearly distressed. Emma, what the hell is this? Tom finally spoke after a moment of silence. You know the reason for the divorce was because your mom cheated with that guy, right? And yet you were meeting them in secret. Though his tone was steady, Tom's eyes showed anger, making Emma visibly uneasy. But Mom's new husband is a good man. He buys me everything I want and takes me to fancy restaurants. Honestly, I think Mom made the right choice marrying him, Emma blurted out anxiously. Tom's face hardened. That's not your concern. Besides, you've developed health issues from eating rich foods behind my back. From now on, you're not allowed to visit them. You don't understand the law, do you? Even if you're divorced, children have the right to see their parents, Emma retorted defiantly. I thought you marrying this woman would mean a higher income and a luxurious life. But all I get is a small allowance, no dinners out, and nagging. There's no point in being at home, Emma muttered bitterly. So that's what you were thinking when you were flattering me during our engagement. One mystery solved, I said with a sense of clarity, letting out a faint smile. Next to me, Tom wore a smug expression as he turned to Emma. Listen, I work hard, sweating and stressing to support you. Do you think I enjoy working overtime and going on business trips? Tom reasoned with Emma, his voice tinged with frustration. But Dad, I'm saving money for your future. Isn't that more important than luxury right now? Emma countered. I glanced at Tom's profile intently. When he asked what was on my mind, looking puzzled, I smiled. The other day, I had a chat with your boss. You know, I used to work in the same department as you, so we're acquainted. Yeah, so what? Tom replied, starting to look nervous, while Emma listened intently now. I inquired if there was any possibility to reduce your overtime, weekend shifts, and business trips because you're hardly ever home, I continued. Your boss mentioned our department is pretty quiet lately. There's hardly any overtime or weekend work, and certainly no business trips. Isn't that concerning? With that, I tapped my phone screen to display some images and placed several photos and an investigation report from my bag next to Emma. So, it turns out you're a regular at a girls' bar in the entertainment district, going there 4 times a week after work. No wonder you're so busy and come home late. Emma's eyes widened as she snatched the report from my hand. As she read through it, her expression turned furious, her hands shaking. On weekends, you spend the night at the apartment you bought for a 20-year-old waitress. Sometimes you even take her to work. Every few months, you go on trips together. I'm shocked. It's like you're living together. Don't you realize your wife and daughter are waiting for you at home? It's none of your business how I spend my money, Tom grumbled sullenly. I'm just supporting a hard-working girl, like volunteering. I couldn't help but laugh at Tom's audacious response. She lives in the same apartment complex as Anna. People have been gossiping about seeing you two shopping together at the local supermarket or cozying up in the lobby. They think we make a handsome couple, Tom added defensively. Don't be ridiculous, I retorted, laughing dismissively. They think it's pathetic for an old man to be fawning over a girl young enough to be his daughter. You're a laughingstock, I said, feeling a mix of astonishment and anger at Tom's behavior. His eyes narrowed sharply in response. Don't call it an affair. I truly love her, Tom retorted defiantly, his expression firm. Emma contorted her face in disgust. Are you serious, Dad? Falling for a girl my age? What is wrong with you? Shut up. I can love whoever I want, Tom snapped back passionately. She said she wants to marry me after she graduates. Be happy, Emma. You'll have a young and beautiful stepmom. Emma sighed deeply, looking distressed. Dad, don't you realize? She's just using you for your money. I don't want a stepmom 3 years older than me. That's pathetic. It doesn't matter. Even if you don't approve, we'll get married anyway, Tom insisted stubbornly. Don't be ridiculous. If you're going to spend money on another woman, increase my allowance first, Emma demanded angrily. Tom calmly replied to Emma's outburst. No, Emma, you're more important. But with a healthy liver, you'll be fine on your own. Emma shot a sharp look at me. That's right. I don't care if you divorce, but give me your liver first. She got off the bed and approached me, gripping my arm with surprising strength despite her condition. The liver regenerates even after part of it is cut off, right? So stop being selfish and give it to me. You're my mother legally, so do your duty. At least be useful in a time like this, you useless jerk. In a time like this? For the past 5 years, I've done my best for you and your dad. And now you're resorting to threats like this? I said in exasperation. Tom sneered. Are you scared of the surgery? Megan, you're a coward and a hypocrite. How pathetic, like I've said before. Why don't you take care of it yourself? I snapped back, and Emma defended Tom, saying, Dad couldn't donate because he wasn't a match. Tom clasped his hands apologetically, feeling exasperated. I pressed the play button on the recording app. I've already told you, I can't handle the pain, and there are risks. His voice was loud and clear through the speaker in the silenced room. What? Emma replied, puzzled by the sound that played. That's your dad's honest feelings. He didn't even do the compatibility test, I said awkwardly, glancing at Tom. Tom, sweating hard, struggled to come up with an excuse. In the end, he cares more about himself than his own daughter, I added, seeing Emma's eyes fill with tears. Tom remarked insensitively. You keep eating like your mom and getting bigger. Besides, your illness is your own doing, Emma, and I don't like fat girls. Tom showed no fatherly concern, his lips pursed and scratching his cheek. How about asking your mom? She's related by blood, so she might be able to help, Tom suggested, clapping his hands as if he had a brilliant idea. Emma frowned. Dad, Mom has diabetes and high blood pressure. It's impossible, Mia replied sadly. noticing how he had forgotten about his ex-wife. Tom and Emma exchanged looks for a moment, then sat on the floor and got down on their knees in front of me. "Please, Megan, donate your liver to Emma," Tom said while faking crying. Emma pleaded tearfully, "You're the only one who can do it." "I've told you repeatedly, I won't do it," I yelled in frustration, feeling mistreated and insulted. "I won't be treated like a servant and then be expected to give you my liver. You're still holding a grudge. You're such a jerk." Fed up, I crouched down, grabbed a bag of snacks from under the bed and headed to the hallway. Pushing away Emma's hands as she tried to take it, I called out to the nurse's station. "Emma is eating chips again," I exclaimed. Before I finished, a nurse rushed over and angrily confronted Emma. "Miss Miller, how many times do I have to tell you to stop? At this rate, even if we find a donor, the transplant won't be possible. And you, sir, please pay more attention and act like a father for once." Watching Emma and Tom with their heads down, I left the room with a smile. Despite being forbidden by the doctor, she had been secretly snacking and drinking juices instead of sticking to the hospital food. Her test results were so poor that her treatment was prolonged, and she had to take a leave of absence from school. The nurse repeatedly urged Tom to undergo compatibility testing, but he adamantly refused, which enraged Emma. "You can spend money and love on your affair partner, but not on me? Forget it. I won't rely on you anymore." She huffed. "Just wait patiently until a donor shows up." Is that what a parent should say? Unbelievable. They argued loudly in the hospital room every day, completely ruining their relationship. Later, Tom signed and returned the divorce papers I sent him. I submitted them to the courthouse immediately, and the divorce was finalized. The $20,000 in alimony for his affair with the waitress from the girls' bar was deposited into my account in one lump sum, and I felt relieved. However, problems began after that. Even after the divorce, Tom persistently clung to me. Since he knew where I worked, he would wait for me at the nearest station after work and try to get back together. "Hey, Megan, let's start over. Emma's medical bills are piling up, and after paying you alimony, my savings are gone. I need you." "You spent your savings on your side chick, didn't you?" I replied coldly. "She dumped me when she found out I was married. Emma won't talk to me either. I'm so lonely. Please come back. You brought this upon yourself. If you continue stalking me, I'll involve the police," I shouted at him. Finally, Tom ceased appearing. Subsequently, his affair with the 20-year-old became public at his workplace, leading to a sharp decline in his reputation. Now, he navigates each workday on edge. When Emma informed her mother about her hospitalization, she boasted about all the wrongs she had done to me and bitterly complained about my cancellation of the donor registration. In response, her mother sent a curt reply, thoroughly exasperated. "I never expected you to be so unappreciative. I'm disappointed in you." I once considered reconciliation, but let's forget it. "Take care of your dad." Emma read and burst into tears, causing disruptions with the nurses. She's now known as the ward's biggest troublemaker. Since I canceled my donor registration, no new donor has come forward. Emma's past habits of binge eating and drinking worsened her condition. Although she eventually started following a diet, it was too late. Doctors now warn her that she could develop liver cancer at any moment. She spends her days in the hospital crying and living in fear. Over the past 5 years, I've come to a profound realization. No matter how hard you try, some people will never appreciate your efforts. Despite the hardships, I also had positive experiences. A colleague who supported me during tough times became someone special, and after dating, we got remarried. At our intimate celebration, Anna and my parents met my new husband, appreciated his kind and sincere nature, visibly feeling relieved. I am determined to build a happy family with this wonderful man this time around.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. president of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.